Yeah, it's funny. What was it that was trending recently? That guy who's like, therapy will solve fascism or something like that.
Yeah, there was. What was
That's
it?
like anti-racism, essentially. I mean,
Yeah,
anti-racist kind of shit.
yeah, you'll get the racism out of you if you just, go to therapy. It's definitely a
Yeah.
rad lib tick that they keep bringing up. I mean, that's why we talked about therapy a while, like an episode or a few episodes ago, was like how it silos off everybody's problems and it's completely against like solidarity. It's just like, you're the only one dealing with it.
It isolates every mental health issue, or frequently, not always, right, to just being like neurochemical, right, like how we discussed, and then or frequently is, and then I just feel like therapy is kind of like the vanguard of a lot of the progressive bullshit.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure. It's where you get to act like you have the word of God for a bunch of the just retarded shit you learned in like the humanities. Present company obviously excluded.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's very like, it's perfect if you were like, some rich person, you got 3 therapists, and like, you're just like, you're trying to hear what you want to hear, and they are just being reflective, not as a way of getting self-reflection, but as a way of giving you validation or telling you exactly what you want to hear. I know a lot of rich people who are like hypochondriac types that like go to doctors like mad frequently, and they, the doctor be like, "You're good, you're fine, chill out, like get a girlfriend, like you're bugging out." But then they'll keep going until they hear the whatever phantom limb issues going on in their head. So it's like the same thing I feel like with the mental health. They don't really want to fix whatever's like, if they do have a problem.
It's like bourgeois confession. Like they just want to go
exactly.
Like, you're given an easy, quick answer.
Yeah, you'll be forgiven.
For sure. Except like the religious people actually had, like, religions had enough sense to have like, most of your problems be just, kind of like, oh, it's sin, or, the devil or something like that, as opposed to, everything is childhood trauma, and you just begin to like form unhelpful narratives about your past that just make you think.
Oh, it helps with the destruction of the family too.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
How so? I kind of get what you mean, but what do you mean by that?
So go on, Sloth.
Just like the emphasis on like trauma and everything, right? Like I almost think that here. Hold on one sec. I don't know. I mean, like I have some like experience in therapy myself, and I don't know. Just the almost like overvaluing of trauma and everything, and just the way that I feel like that stuff just very, very frequently goes in the direction of like, oh, showed up to therapy and like apparently I had a really abusive upbringing without me even knowing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And
right.
I guess like it sounds like I'm kind of overstating it, but like it's so entrenched in the culture, and I think that it is perpetuated.
Well, it enforces individuality a lot too, and so that inherently like cuts off other types of like collectivity, especially like even family related.
Well, and that's like what makes like jettisoning family so easy. I guess I'm also just saying that the way that like science has been used generally, right? Like in like race science or things in the past, like oh, we're a science, right? Kind of air quotes.
Right, it's all science, right?
Right. Like we're a science, and so like this is the word of God, and so it's like throwing nitrous into the engine of like making something catch on culturally, and just like the sheer amounts of people I come across, and like honestly, I don't have a perfect family myself, far from it or anything. The sheer amount of people I come across that just like really casually just have like horrible, horrible things to say about their family and their upbringings, in spite of the fact that they've lived incredibly privileged lives, and have
because they gotta look somewhere.
Love them. Well, right, and what I'm saying,
they gotta be oppressed somehow.
And if they hadn't gone to these professionals, they probably would have found a more meaningful place to put all that psychic energy. You know what I mean?
Right.
It also helps with the victim complex too.
Yeah.
Like, you want to be like the most oppressed. You want to be oppressed. So like
it's like an integral block in that Jenga tower. 100%.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, it's very much just like, it always ends with like the end of the discussion. I'm sure is just like, it's not your fault, and I mean, to some degree, there's some truth to that. Obviously, people go through fucked up shit and like carry baggage, and it's not their fault.
Oh,
but
totally.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, it gets to a point where, yeah, exactly, where if you were somebody who had a completely privileged life and everything was fucking good and you're just a fucking brat, that same therapist will not tell you you're a brat. They won't tell you that. They can't tell you that.
Yes.
They're paid. There's no way they could tell you that. So even if it is the truth, it's like, it's all flattened. You know what I mean? Like, they can't.
When I kind of think about like, dude, in like the 80s, there was this whole thing about like uncovered memories or shit like that, right? Where you'd be like, your memory wipes this away, but like this happened in your future, and we're gonna bring
memory regression.
Exactly.
Some like Freudian shit.
Not past life shit, but basically just being like a trauma made you suppressed memories. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
Suppressed memory, right?
That's in Scientology too. Yeah.
And that right, going way back.
Science though.
Yeah, L.
Ron Hubbard. Yeah.
And Scientologists famously very
honorable
about therapists. To be fair.
Yeah.
They actually are. What the fuck was I saying?
Repressed memories.
Oh no, and that shit's all like that shit totally fell out, right? Because you had this huge problem for a while of people just being like, oh, like my mom or my dad molested me as a kid, and then it just turns out like totally didn't happen. Of anything.
Very
right?
true. Very true.
Like, I feel like what's going on today is basically is sort of kind of like that, except like if instead of being suggested into like a memory specifically, it was kind of just like an internal version of like the total lack of any kind of like moral flexibility people have with like considering the past anymore. The conversations people are having that are just completely psychotic about like George Washington now as kind of an example, shit like that, right? Like if you think about
tread lightly now, careful.
Shit.
No, I'm totally joking.
Right. Call me a colonizer.
No, that's an American hero. I hope you better not disparage him.
Right. If I think about like some of the shit that like my dad said when I was growing up, like yeah, I'm completely sure that I can convince myself that my dad is like a toxic, horrible fascist or something like that. But like, no, like I love my dad.
Exactly.
And like a lot of those things, and honestly, just like a lot of just like the behavior that a parent needs to engage in, right? That's a hierarchy. That's discipline, and this kind of anarchist way of looking at things just doesn't mesh well with that in the first place. But yeah, I mean, I think that there is just like a little bit of like warped retrospect, kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because everybody is half dickhead and half, decent person to some extent. Varying degrees of both of those with everybody, obviously, but it's never as simple as just one thing or the other. And that's just like American history. It's like everything.
It's a safe bet to just say that like most people's family lives are at least like a tiny bit complicated.
Yeah, it's just like, and it's the same thing with the American history thing that you're comparing to. It's like, if you want to focus on all the negative shit, it's very easy. I mean, I've always been, even when I was a rad lib, I've always been careful not to just go full on, like, there's nothing redeeming about this country at all. Like, that's a popular rad lib thing, like, along with fuck everybody who's a cop, fuck everybody who's a troop, like, regardless of how they got into it, whether they were underclass and preyed on, it doesn't matter. Like, I've always been cautious against all that shit, not out of patriotism or whatever, but just like, I don't like oversimplistic shit like that. And, I think, I mean, anybody who just, if you only want to focus on the bad shit of this country, it's very easy to do. It's the same thing with anybody, any relationship you had. If you only want to just, be coaxed into thinking about all the fucked up shit somebody did to you, and everybody's done fucked up shit to you, then, it's very easy to just get a one-track mind of like, fuck this motherfucker. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's oversimplistic. So it's just like, they definitely like harp on that shit because they want you to like, put everything into neat boxes of like, this is your traumatizer, this is your oppressor, like, and it's, pay me what, $200 an hour, however the fuck much that shit. Yo,
10 grand a speech, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like I looked up one of those. That was the thing too. It was like I was looking up like I've never gotten therapy. Like I was like looking into it for a little bit, and like it was like what $350 a session or some shit. I was like, what the fuck? And you need it weekly at least. And it's like, damn, like that's a fuck ton of that's rent. Like I can't pay that. Like I was just immediately just like, oh well, I guess I'll just kill myself. Like I was just immediately like, what am I supposed to do? I can't do that. It's very weird that all the rad libs are like, men need to get therapy to like stop being incels, stop watching the Joker over and over. And it's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, I don't know if like they know how expensive that shit is. Like, it's not accessible to everybody.
Yeah. No, I went to some therapy like several years ago for like a couple months, and I had health insurance at the time through my job, and they still wouldn't even cover all of it. So I'd pay a copay, and then I would get billed for like an additional amount, and it usually totaled out to about $140 for a session.
Yep.
Which is crazy.
Yep. Even after insurance. Yeah, I had good insurance. That shit was still like with deductible and copay and all that bullshit. It's still like, it was like, and I'm in the city, so it was like 200-300, like whatever for the first couple sessions or whatever. So yeah.
And a lot of health insurances won't actually even pay for mental health care, which is like a caveat people just seem to like either look over or forget willfully.
Right, because it's not real. I take the Eastern look on this. There is no real mental health issues. It's all made up Western shit. You know what I mean? People are just being bitches.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that.
What, for real? I don't know about that.
For the most part. Like, I don't know. I think everything has a material reason behind it. Like, I think, like, these school shootings and shit you're seeing, that's not just, like, mental illness, right? That's the reaction to our society.
Absolutely.
Like, school shootings didn't exist until, like, a couple decades ago, right? Serial killers didn't exist until the past century or so. And so that's a reaction probably to the society, too.
Well,
so I think,
it's one and the same, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. It's like that. Like the psychological is the material, is the psychological is the material.
Right,
exactly.
Right. Yeah,
I'm always harping on dialectics in my class too. I'm just like, no, y'all need to think about the whole picture.
Careful, they're gonna disappear you.
You're holding up tweets from Fred all the time. As a quick side note, just about like the we were talking about like fuck America stuff and everything. Like, just as a side note, because you touched on that and we moved on. Like, in my mind, it's just ultimately just completely baby-brained to think of like nations as like properly anything other than just amoral things, right? Like just like the whole thing about reading Chomsky and realizing like how horrifying the
Howard Zinn,
yeah, all of that shit
isn't
like to be like, oh man, like this is the bad guy. It's like what Chomsky fucking says himself, where he's just like, no, like nations just as a thing are just deeply benevolent, right? Like, don't make it I mean, I don't know, that's moralizing in itself, but like whether or not a country is evil or good isn't even a valid fucking concept.
No, it's stupid.
You know what I mean?
Stupid. No, any country with a bourgeois state, the state itself is just like carrying out violence regardless. Like, that's what a state does. It's for the oppression of one class or the other. Mm-hmm. So like any nation with a state is inherently, I mean, like you could say even bad though. Like, I see what you're saying about like, you can't say America is like terrible, but like you can't say that about any nation, like because of the fact that that's what a state is. Like, if you want to get into actual like what's like the function of the state is and stuff like that, like that's a little bit of a different thing from a nation, I guess.
You can't say like you can't say it about shit, really. You can't say anything is fucking good or evil. That's baby brain. I remember 10 years ago when I'd hear like talk radio, I tune in on the conservatives just to keep my ear to like what they're talking about, and all the I was just a straight like regular lib. And like, they'd always be talking about like all these people, these ISIS people, like they're evil. Like I believe in good and evil in the world. There's good and there's evil. And now all the rad libs say that shit. They all believe that shit. You know what I mean? With the incels, with the white supremacists, like all that shit. Like they all ascribe to that. They didn't used to. The left wasn't always like, it used to be the right were the social justice warriors. Like they had an agenda socially and they pushed it on everybody, the Christian agenda.
And now, values.
Yeah. And now it's not like that. Now, like they're the ones who are more chill by comparison. Now the left is the one that have all the, the social prescriptions for everything. And, they believe in the good and evil shit. You have to have that type of binary baby brain thinking to be a social justice anything, to push your social agenda on other people as if you know how other people's lives are or what they've been through or what the fuck they're, what the fuck is going on with them. Like, you have to have that. Yeah, you got to have this binary of like there's good and evil. And that's how they think about this shit. They think it's the same way. They think of countries and all this shit and good and evil. It's like, yo, man, that shit is not that simple. It's not the country. It's just like the systems that come of it. It's a useless frame of thinking. It's useless. It doesn't get you anywhere. It doesn't help you figure out, what to do next. You know what I mean?
It obfuscates what to do.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to tear down the USA, like the USA and the state. You need to just like, we need to take over the state if we can, type of thing. So like, it's not about like, fuck the America. We want it to crumble and like all this like death to America, KKK kind of shit I've been seeing everywhere. Like, it's not, that's going to get people just on some retarded like anarchist shit, dude. Like,
oh, right, because the only conclusion they draw is like just burn the whole thing down.
Yeah, like it needs to go, and like whatever happens next, like needs to happen regardless. So like even if it's bad, hopefully we get somewhere good, like some like kind of white pilled shit.
No plan, yeah, just destruction, yeah.
Well, and this is where like, I think that like being critical of our national identity or of our government, all these things is one thing, but to have this be like the main one, just like the central narrative of the day, right? Like the DNC put out like a campaign that I retweeted today. or a campaign video, right? Where like it's just, I mean, it's all just it's all just resist shit. But like the song is saying like burn the motherfucker down, right. Like being critical of the country we live in is like one thing, and like I said, having it be like the central narrative of what's going on just like makes it so completely different. Like what the fuck is the play here, right?
Well, they've been taken over by Antifa.
Right. like it's just, this isn't, I don't know. It's corrosive. It's corrosive. I mean, it's just as simple as that.
While we're talking about ads, did y'all see that Biden ad where they compared Trump to like Maduro and Chavez?
Oh, in Spanish, right? In Spanish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
It's a highlight reel. Every psyop they've done.
Dude.
There's a COVID, BLM. You know, what is it? Him cozying up with Putin or whatever the fuck they talk about. It's like, you know.
Yeah.
Just whatever jingoistic fucking talking points they had.
Yeah, just a supercut of CNN over the last 3 years.
Like that ad was that way because like Latino voters are like a pretty like reliably conservative voting bloc, right? So like that's why they would go that hard in that. It's still pretty astounding. I wonder how much of these kinds of things, because I'm sure this isn't the last. It's a stunningly jingoistic ad we see from Biden. But like, I wonder how much of this is trying to kind of like do their own brand of like being bombastic, like Trump. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As opposed to just being like mild mannered, like little shucks, like, you know, have those like a couple ads where you can be like, yeah, like our guy can go hard too.
Yeah, like Biden's gonna be hard on Shine.
Right, exactly.
It came out a few months ago.
I don't think it's just
right. Like, yeah.
Wait, Spicy, could you turn your mic up?
Oh yeah. I have to hold it a bit closer. It's up.
Oh, you're good.
I don't think it's just like a play for Latino voters. I think it's very much in line with the, you know, like neocon to the Democratic Party shift, and
absolutely.
I think that's what they're leading into more so.
Right, exactly.
Which I think is just kind of left to the wayside a lot of the times when talking about how the campaign has positioned itself.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, their big tent and their hedging is around, you know, rehabilitating the neocons, Bush and Michelle Obama together. Like, that's their tent. That's their appearance of being broad. Like, we're the norm, and that shit over there is crazy. When I'm sure if you look at the raw numbers, populist right Trump supporters are way more than the number of people who are still so fucking brainwashed that they still care about the GOP and the DNC. Like, I don't believe that shit. That shit is, if there's anything that's astroturf, I don't believe the MAG astroturf. I don't believe the left astroturf. That shit is astroturf. I don't believe that shit. You know, it's just the dwindling numbers of people who are good in this system every day. Those people are the only people that would defend this shit as it is. So the neocon, neolib thing, like, they have to do that. They can't keep up the charade of, oh, Romney and Obama are drastically different. They can't do that anymore. Not now. Not with this shit falling apart. They can't do that anymore. They gotta coalesce at those two small islands because that's all they got left. And, you know, there was never a real difference to begin with. So it's nothing to them to bring that together. And they want to project it as like, oh, we're the big, you know, we're the center of this country. It's like, center of nothing. You know what I mean? It's not that many people. It really isn't.
How many hands do you think from like the actual, like from within the Republican Party and their like structures and everything are involved in this going on right now?
Oh yeah.
I mean, because you know, we see like our Cheneys and our Bushes and things like that, but like, I mean, you have to imagine like, you know, they're in the rooms planning whatever campaign Romney has
absolutely
in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And that's another. Oh, go ahead.
Biden actually just got a super PAC set up by like hundreds of former Bush officials.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Wait, is this Lincoln Project?
Let me see.
Because that fucking account on Twitter is the most.
I thought it was something.
This was called 43 alumni for Biden.
Okay.
43 alumni.
Former USDA official under Bush.
Oh,
Lincoln
God.
Project is like media stuff, right?
Yeah.
This was.
That's their shitpost account.
I thought it was like associated, but never mind.
Oh, it looks like it says right here, it joins a growing number of conservative groups working against Trump, including the Lincoln Project, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
Just pathetic shit.
Yeah, the shift is happening, no doubt.
I mean, it's been happening.
Yeah, absolutely. But like, it's just like even more clear, like just by the day.
Yeah, I mean, well, and this is what I was going to say. Is just that like how consistently Trump has been opposed by his own party is something that like doesn't get talked about a lot on the left at all.
I know,
and I think that this is going to be super interesting because it's going to be like right out in front of our faces now, and because they're going to be, you know, cooperating with our favorite villains. Crossover. And so, if I was a liberal, I would call this a crossover episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
In addition to that, like I think one thing that's been interesting that I've tried to talk to some of my lib friends about, which I haven't really seen played out, is like the opposite side with the Democrats, where you have the neocons shifting over, and it's surprising how little thought is given to, even with their own frame of like primarily racial lens of, like presumably the neocons that are making the transition, which are majority white and wealthy, would give them pause about, how ideal the Democratic Party is as a means to bring about, the ends they desire. Because presumably wealthy white neocons turned libs are like, equally a threat to a racial justice lens as it is to a materialist lens.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%.
And it's completely been ignored. Like I haven't seen any sort of concern. It's all just Democratic Party rehabilitation from both sides.
Right. If all you care about is social shit, then why are you cool with these fucking, slugs being on your side?
Yeah.
And it's just because, it was always material. It was always material from the beginning. Even the Radlib, PMC Warners, it was always material. Nothing to challenge the actual material system. Nothing against that. All the social shit is just gesturing. But what it boils down to is, are you going to take my, take some away of my status, my PMC status? That's really what it was always about. And they're all on the same page about that, because all it takes is just being like, oh, the president should have said these words. As long as you're on the same page of that, like, oh, the decorum was wrong. The way the civility thing, that's all they talk about all day. As long as they're on the same page about that, and the neocons are in agreement about that, because they like to do the bigotry, if you want to frame it that way, or the fucked up shit with, proper etiquette. You got to do it with proper etiquette. That's the whole Neolib fashion. That's the whole neocon fashion. So they're in agreement against him, because they're like, you shouldn't just say, you shouldn't just call them spics. I mean, you should just deport them like Obama did, but you shouldn't say, don't say it out in the open like that. Don't say you can't deal with Khashoggi because, we're friends with Saudi Arabia and we can't fuck with them. Like, don't say that. Just do what Obama would have done, which is just do the same shit in actuality, but, word it a little bit differently. That's why they can get away with, putting some wedge, acting as if there's a wedge between them, when it's not really. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and a bit of pandering.
Yeah, and I think like the hypocrisy and just how this doesn't add up is gonna be addressed minimally by like you gotta like definitely not like a cancellation or anything, but like they'll throw someone publicly to the wolves out of this like group of people to just get kind of thrashed around in the news a little bit so they can continue to do what they're doing. Like I wouldn't be surprised if that happened at all.
More kayfabe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like when the Dems, like when he was trying to go to Iran, when he was trying to do the interventionism that all the neocons were, dying for. And all the neolibs are just like, the pod save motherfucker, I don't even know his name. It's just like, oh, but you need, the proper protocol. Why don't you get the right nations on board beforehand? Why don't you have a plan? You know what I mean? All decorum, etiquette, superficial bullshit. Really, he's still down to go to war. The Democrats still want to go to war. They're on the same page as the neocons. Everything else is just how you word it, how you present it, what's the PR. That's it. But the real actual thing that happens is the same. So, I don't get why the left can't see that, they always want to frame Trump as the same as the neocons and the neolibs. And he's clearly not. He's clearly fucking not. I used to believe that too, a little bit, to a degree. I mean, he is co-opted. I mean, I'm sure even the hard right feel him being co-opted by the neocons. I'm sure. That's just a fact.
Mean, like the Trump supporters I know are like pretty unhappy with it.
Absolutely, because he's he's not a full nationalist, economically or socially, he's still giving concessions across the board, but he's still not one of them, and that's what it boils down to at the end of the day. I mean, like, I don't know, what do you think of that? I mean, I really think he's not one of them. I mean, I think that's why they want him out. I mean, do you think it's it's just kayfabe? It's just all part of that,
The whole thing.
No, Trump, just Trump. Like, I used to think it was like the Chomsky thing. Like, he's supposed to be the 2 minutes of hate. He's just supposed to be there, but he's doing what they all do. But I don't know if I believe that anymore. I don't think they want him. I think they really genuinely want him out.
I think that like I think that it's all I think that it's pretty reliably like a little bit of mix of both, right? So like where the smoke, very little fire but tons of smoke for the media circus, where that exists, like, does benefit the status quo and the people that we dislike and everything, and they totally are taking advantage of that, undeniably. But I think it's like pretty clear after the last few years that, like, yes, the disruption that he poses is like very much not appreciated, and I think that that's pretty genuine. I think that's pretty genuine. I don't think that there's any great conspiracy here. Like, I think like they hate him as much as they seem to hate him.
Yeah, I think it's like the cathedral thing. Like if he were a full on threat, he would not have gotten that close to the White House. They'd have killed him. You know, anybody who's that much of a threat doesn't even get close to that position. You know, not that position is that powerful anymore, but even symbolically, you know, we wouldn't get miles within that range. They'd kill you in front of everybody. You know, they do that shit. So like him being there is a sign that he's not that much of a threat. But I mean, I think there's some, like it's like you said, there's some in between. Like they don't want him there.
He represents the same class interests.
So he passed the Bush tax cuts.
So that's what the issue. Like that's where like they prefer him obviously over like a Bernie or anything else, because like he's going to still look out for tax cuts for corporations, et cetera, which is really like what capital's concerned about. But he's just a little bit too like of a loose cannon and not fully neocon, so they don't feel comfortable with him doing that. Like they would rather anyone else, but they saw him as a golden ticket to the White House in the last one, and they hopped on it. Is what I think, and they knew that he was going to still look be beholden to like corporations' interests, other than the TPP, I guess. But as far as like tax breaks and everything,
he did the tax breaks, yeah. Just like a neocon, just like a neolib. Oh, like he did the same shit. But the TPP thing, the trade stuff, and not going to war, despite Bolton,
that's huge,
and all them like in his ear, you know, begging him to Pompeo, like begging him to go, like, you know, pushing for it every day, and it's not happening. You know, the way this year started, we all remember how that shit started. All the Venezuela shit, all the North Korea shit. We all remember that shit was always on the brink. Like they wanted it, and it didn't happen. And I think if it were Hillary, we would be at war by now.
I think we would have already been in it before those.
Absolutely. She was a known hawk. Like that was her pitch. Like she was a hawk. Like we would be at war. And I don't think that's I don't know how the left doesn't see that. Like it's not a small negligible difference. You know, he did the tax breaks. Like that's not going to budge. Like they've got such a lock on that. No matter who's in office, that's going to happen. It's going to flow their way no matter what. But those other things like the trade and the wars, you know, to whatever extent he held off on it, like he did. I mean, they would rather Romney. They would rather Walker, Jeb Bush, Rubio, Hillary, Biden. They'd rather them in. You know what I mean? I don't think people can deny that. I don't think the left can deny that. Not now.
Well, I think. I mean, ultimately, I think like the problem is that we're just like I think that the left doesn't. I think the left gives itself a lot more credit than it probably deserves about like how separate it is from just mainstream libs.
Absolutely,
absolutely.
Like we're still following. Like we act like oh man, like those like liberals on CNN are not. You know, the left as it were, but like we still follow their accounts more than we follow the people
exactly
news. And
exactly.
So, like, we have a lot more we're still tuned into that, and like the absolute foundational religious doctrine of this lane is that like you have to admit that like that Trump is like a dictator, or I mean not even but like that he like even to consider him as just a viable piece on the board is beyond the pale. And like I think that all of us have taken that in to some extent. I think all of us have.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean like it's obvious, like yes, the class interest thing. Like Trump is like a horrible rich slob. Fuck him, right? And like at the end of the day, he's not going to be aligned with my best interest or anything like that. That just like basic that to point that out just puts him on even footing with literally every president we've ever had.
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
You know what I mean? So that's not even a fucking criticism.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess I hate him in a way that's just similar to like, I hate anybody who's just like pouring more fire on like the culture war bullshit. I don't know. I mean, I think that there's no way of like there's no way of framing the way everybody considers him without just like really overstating the executive branch of the government.
Absolutely pretending like that shit is that consequent, like, you know what I mean, like that has that much power anymore. You know what I mean? It doesn't.
Like how much of this is actually us hating him and thinking he's exceptional, and how much of this is us just like rightfully just having like a real distaste for just like the operations of the Republican Party.
Right. Most people on the left just what were you saying?
Well, not just the Republican Party.
Well, I realize that, but I just mean in the when picking apart just like what makes him so beyond reproach, like the obviously by our standards of like civilized company, with the obviously repellent stances that the Republican Party takes, as opposed to, you know, like the Democratic Party that does the things that, you know, we're supposed to admit are, you know, the consensus of what is considered good.
Yeah.
You know, I think like Angela Nagel on like on What's Left recently, it said something, brought up like something about God, what was it? It just like bringing up how, you know, we don't really like acknowledge maybe enough that like, the Republican brand is like completely cancerous and radioactive, you know, and I feel like they've been able, or they're in the process of like rolling that up into just like one person or like a handful of people.
Right.
But like, no, like this, and the main point I want to make that just is that like, so like to be apolitical in this country is to just be a Democrat. You know what I mean? Because just like any cursory just passing knowledge of culture, it just shows you that like that is the wrong thing. Republicans and all that. Sorry, I'm kind of running out.
No, I mean,
I think that depends on where you're in.
Right, exactly.
That's absolutely the case. But given just cultural landscape,
sure.
Given cultural landscape,
I don't think I think the left. You know, they always say like the left has won the culture war. I don't know about that because, you know, I mean, maybe in the aughts. I mean, we're in a different.
They are blowing a 10-point lead right now.
I don't. Yeah, this is the thing. Yeah, in the aughts,
I was saying they are. They had everyone on like the racism's bad. Okay, yeah. Did that. They had everyone on like these things that everyone should already understand, and then they just tried to like crank them up exponentially.
Exactly.
To like the furthest extreme of that. To be like, now if you don't get with us all the way on this extreme, then you're not with us at all. And it's just fucking absurd.
I remember I was into politics in the aughts. I remember if on social issues, if you were just chill, if you didn't have strong opinions, if you were just chill, you were on the left. Because it was the right that was hardcore, like, no, this is how things are supposed to be in the bedroom. This is how things are supposed to be in the family. This is how you're supposed to conduct it. It was them. You know what I mean? So, like, if you were just, like, whatever, if you were just a normal person that wasn't insane, you were on the left, like, socially. Because, I mean, obviously nobody cares about material things. It was always social. So, socially, you were on the left.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but now, this is different. Now, we're in a different landscape now. We're not in the aughts anymore, like, as far as the cultural thing. I don't think the left has the cultural victory now. I think the right has that shit because now
you can tell by that Tucker monologue.
Yeah. If you're apolitical now, I think you're on the right. I think you're on the right now because the left is the one who's pushing the social agenda harder. So if you're the one who's just like, yo, I'm agnostic. If you're agnostic, you're gonna resonate more with the right, in my opinion, socially.
Yeah, you're fascist, Jason.
I mean, the
right
is more like amoralism, and you know that's just been the shift that's happened in the past decade. And so, you know, if you're not looking to scold or impugn others, yeah, it's definitely shifted to the right.
Yeah, it's like silence is consent kind of shit.
Right, exactly.
That like white silence is black violence.
Exactly. If you're just like some dumbass, you know, just smack that out of your mind. You never thought about any of this shit. You don't give a fuck about any of this shit. You know, you are a fucking Nazi. You're a Nazi. If you just smacked on the couch, just like, oh, what's going on with society? What, like? Oh, they did that shit? Like, what? They did slavery on black people? If you're like that, you're a Nazi. You know what I mean? Like, just the average American that doesn't know what the fuck is going on is a Nazi.
Exactly. If you're just a normal American subject.
Yeah, or if you're a normal American subject who's, like, so disillusioned by everything now, that's just like, yeah, I mean, we can't do shit to change that. Like, that's like where my parents are at. They're not even black-pilled, but they're just like, I mean, what am I going to do?
It is what it is.
What does it matter? It's not, these people aren't representing me. And those people, since they're not voting for Biden or whatever the fuck, oh yeah, you're fascist adjacent now. So my mom's a fascist now. Like,
that's what I'm saying. That's what I've been trying. People were always telling me like, yo, you're like pushing right-wing shit. I'm like, no, you don't understand that the left has gone so hardcore pushing a social agenda and moving the goalposts. Every couple years, there's a new buzzword, a new liberal buzzword, a new woke standard. It's always adapting and changing. Yeah, as soon as the normie gets scolded enough in public or on social media or by HR, and they're like, oh, fuck, I didn't know that was bad anymore. I'll change the way I talk about it. As soon as they get on board with that, just out of apathy, because it's not really a big deal either way, it's trivial. As soon as they get on board with that, exactly. It's just to not hear your you know, somebody bitch at you or whatever. Like, as soon as you adjust to that, then there's a new standard. You know what I mean? The left is the one pushing it. So if you are, and that's the thing, you know, that's why, you know, I'm sure all of you have been called a Nazi. I've been called a Nazi. It's like, if you talk to the real, like, hardcore left who are a sign of where things are going to go as far as the left en masse, right? They find all that shit abhorrent. They find all that shit. They find agnosticism to be fervent fucking Nazism. That's how they view that.
Right.
So, you know,
it graphs on pretty well. I mean, I was fairly young when this was happening, but from what I remember, it graphs on fairly well to just like the gay marriage debate. And, you know, if you're just kind of take the position of, well, like, I don't really care what other people do, you know, if they want to be with a partner, then that's
exactly
a parallel where the right was very moralistic about it, and it's just reversed.
Exactly, dude. I was telling right-wing motherfuckers, I was like, dude, I don't give a fuck what the fuck they do. I don't give a shit if they're fucking each other in the ass. I don't care. I do not care.
Well, yeah.
Shut the fuck up about it.
Arcade yelling at Slav and like,
yeah, 14. Back in the aughts, I was talking to Slav. I was like, dude, shut up. I don't care. I don't care. He's like, no, this is wrong, dude. They can't have kids. This is wrong. It's gonna cause depopulation.
They're gonna raise their kids wrong.
Yeah, he told me this, and I was like, dude, I don't care. I don't give a fuck. And now, if you
be white supremacists,
right, and now if you have that opinion, you hate gay people pretty much. If you're just like, yo, I don't care. Like, if you're not actively like amplifying gay voices, you're a Nazi. You know what I mean? Like that's how things have moved now.
Well, that's actually how the Nazis started their operations and everything by not sending.
People forget this.
As everybody knows.
There's no.
No, but yeah, I do think. I think. Well, I mean, the social. I don't know. I don't. You know, the culture war shit. Like, who's winning, who's not winning. I don't even really care. I mean, you know, I think it helps. I think it helps frame why the left has lost sense of where the middle is. Like, nobody knows the numbers on what side. Nobody knows who's out of touch. Like, they've no idea. They're just in their own bubble, you know, getting deeper.
Everyone lives in their own fake reality.
I agree.
Like, politics involved.
I agree. I think the left though is in another fucking universe more than.
I don't think I would say that the culture war doesn't matter though. I mean, like, obviously, like, we know it obviously ultimately doesn't matter. But like, it's the it's the one thing being talked about at all. Right
of course,
now.
No, of course.
So it like matters to that extent.
Of course,
I think it might be like I feel like winning isn't exactly the right way to describe it. You know, it's more like whose cultural vendetta is more dominant.
Yeah, that's the thing. The left's
exactly winning. You know.
The left's cultural agenda, because it's gotten far out of hand. And now, I mean, I'm going to sound like a right winger from a decade ago, but like because they're of the elite, you know what I mean, and they run the media and they're everywhere. They have elite. Right, and you know they.
I love that we need qualifiers.
They're just real.
True. Yeah, it's just like 100% true, and we talk all the time about like oh man, like what's wrong with the left? What's going on? And it's just like, yeah, like the fact that like we ourselves need to make these fucking qualifiers.
Yeah, no, fuck that qualifier. I'm gonna remove that shit. I'm gonna edit that shit out. That qualifier.
Fine.
Like, I'm not a Nazi, but I do think that the elites are kind of up to something suspicious here.
Right.
Like, kind of triple parentheses. Right.
I don't want to gas minorities, but I would like to have a wife someday.
Right. Exactly.
Normal shit.
No, I mean they're part of the elite. The elites are left and taking on the social left agenda. So they've got the bigger megaphone. So in terms of winning, I mean, I think of it in just like raw numbers. Like, who's got the numbers? Like, they don't have the numbers because they're of the elite. The elite are a small number by nature. So they've got the bigger presence. They've got the bigger influence on what HR departments do. That trickle down there's trickle down social, economics or whatever. So I mean, they've got that bigger presence. But yeah, I mean, in terms of who's winning, like, I mean, you know, there's no winning either way. Nobody's gonna win this. Nobody's gonna fucking win this shit. It doesn't matter how it goes. If it flips the other way, if the right becomes, you know, the elite social culture, like there's no winning this shit. You can't change the way people. You can't change people's values. You know what I mean? If somebody's in another fucking part of the world, you can't get them to believe the same exact shit you do. It's fucking stupid. You know what I mean?
Well, I think the winning. I mean, because this shit's all just a fucking distraction.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So like the winning in this case would be denying. I guess it would be denying Trump a second term, where he would just do a bunch of fucking executive actions before he was out for good.
Right now, there is no winning for the left.
Like, that would be winning by denying your opponent a move.
Sure.
Yeah. I think that that's valid.
I think we need to do a lot of work as like distancing ourselves from the left, like from the just at least the modern conception of the left in American society. Like, we need to be able to like very stringently say we are not those fucking rad libs. We're not those libs. You know, yes, we do believe like everyone should have basic equal rights and all this shit. Like, that message still resonates, obviously. but like we don't have to go deep in with it. And I think that what we should do is just focus on not like just distancing ourselves as much as possible from the left and emphasizing that we're not the main what you consider the left, and that what the American like quote Overton window or whatever that allows for what we consider the left as far as in discussion and stuff is not at all actually like communist or Marxist or materialist or anything at all, but it's in fact just another like reactionary strain of bourgeois liberalism. So we just have to be able to like make that distinction very strongly and push away from it is what I think.
I think as a caution, like sort of, I think this is sort of like the Shia side of left Twitter / there is no left Twitter is just kind of the pushing back against the idea of there being a we that can substantively split. You know, like I feel like kind of the underlying point in, you know, anti-leftism or just left criticism at the moment is just that any constituency that is going to be making that distinction between, you know, rad libby socialist left and more materialist left is that the materialist left is still going to be like, you know, I mean, we're all in school, right? And we're all college educated and, or in the path to being so. And really there needs to be development of a, you know, actual working class power. And yeah, like, but the we that's making the transition isn't so much saying like we, and if you listen to us, we will offer something different. It's more saying we need to recognize that the as much as there is a we, it's us being like within this greater sphere, there's not much to be done if we want to move left substantively. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Getting too caught up on the kind of abstractions of it, I feel like is like how I would kind of put that, you know?
Yeah. And like putting, like, if you're on Twitter, like ultimately you don't carry that much weight in terms of being left. Like the most meaningful left action isn't going to happen on Twitter. So anybody who's making distinctions on Twitter isn't going to be the primary concern. And like, you know, Mr. At Gay Stepdad 69 sort of hit a point recently that I had been thinking about when I first came across this, you know, after Bernie's loss and being exposed to sort of there is no left criticism. You know, I'm from a middle class background and going to school and everything. And, you know, is kind of a fatalist perspective, and I had a very big point where I was like, you know, what role do I have to play in any sort of potential development? Because even if I'm like getting really educated, I think I would be alienating to any sort of working class graphic, right? Like, and you know, the point he made, which I think is sort of the main avenue I've seen as the only real option for participation is like, you know, donating to strike funds and having some sort of like online left, which is more oriented towards enabling a natural left to develop through some sort of support
party.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think that's reasonable. I can't claim to like know what to do necessarily.
I'm in the business of critiquing shit. I'm in the business of talking shit. Like I'm not in the business of prescribing.
I don't
shit.
have solutions.
Yeah, I'm talking shit. You know what I mean?
I'll spitball some.
Exactly what I was going to say. Not that that isn't appreciated. Not that you. Never mind. But yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of the mind that to the extent that I like actually do, you know, like interact with whatever representation of the left I see in front of me, like I guess it's just criticizing it into oblivion and trying to weaken how it appears in my life as much as I can. Seems like a meaningful thing to pursue right now. You know what I mean? Like just trying to just douse the entire thing.
And like your point about the left sort of tailing, you know, just sort of the average liberal perspective a la CNN. Like when you were bringing that up, I was just thinking like whenever push comes to shove, like with the Bolivia coup, like immediately the, you know, supposed online left sphere just fell like lockstep in being like, oh, like this isn't a coup, this isn't anything to be concerned about. And right, you know, that kind of bullshit is necessary to be like, look, like if anybody's going to be LARPing as left, we should be able to look at this very clear instance of, you know, a coup happening and their inability to call it as it is.
Right, or the I mean, it's, you know, stupid culture war shit, but the Covington kids or whatever, right? The kid with the smug child on TV with the Trump hat that everyone just freaked out about.
With the drum.
Yeah, exactly. Just like, what the fuck is wrong with people? What the fuck is wrong with people just falling into line? And I don't know. It is like, if you look at if you zoom out, you take a couple steps back, just like how consistently the online, we'll just call it the online left, right? How consistently the online left is like in lockstep with like the liberal establishment. It's just like, all right, well, like, I don't know, a lot of the criticisms I get from like right-wing relatives about that, I kind of like have no way of dismissing.
Well, I mean, yeah, the online, the thing that Twitter is in real life and all that, like I get that, but I mean, you know, in terms of there being trickle down influence, you know, like there's a couple like coastal Brooklyn leftists that sort of everybody else gets their opinions from, you know what I mean? There is something to that in terms of like, they might not be representative of everybody, but they sort of have this sway down to people who are, you know, maybe don't have time to think about this shit. They do have this power to sort of influence the way things are framed. And yes, a lot of the fucking left just regurgitates all the same shit the liberals say. And it's just shocking to me time and time again as things go on, like, do you not realize that you're literally saying the exact same shit Don Lemon says verbatim? Like, does that not occur to you? You know what I mean? Like, they you know, the impeachment shit. Like, they were for I remember when Chapo was for impeachment. And AOC, the squad, they were all for impeachment. The impeachment is lib fucking shit. It's fucking lib shit. And, you know, they never took the Russiagate shit on. I mean, I know some leftists who did. Some people in DSA who took the Russiagate shit too, which is embarrassing. Mm-hmm. But, you know, forget it. You know, impeachment usually, yeah, that's what they usually did take. And the COVID shit, you know, again, that's controversial, but like a lot of them take that verbatim as is.
I'll do one spicy for you.
Okay.
What is the left case? What is like an actually sound left case besides xenophobia for siding with the Democrats over Trump with regards to immigration? To say nothing of the fact that like having a wall, like building a wall, is a complete stupid fucking waste of time. But like we're usually not the people that are like super hawkish about like where money is being spent. To be fair, though it is a valid criticism. Like if we're supposed to be about building working class power and everything, then like in what way is the Democrats' platform of just like maintaining the status quo of basically just slave labor for the middle class? How is that any more acceptable than Trump's position?
Right.
Because it's actively because by my estimation, it's like actively like quite a few times worse than tightening up on immigration.
Well, again, the immigration thing and the corporate trade deals thing gets conflated in my eyes. I don't think they're exactly the same issue. You know, I think the right and the left conflates them because
I'm not even talking about that. I'm straight up just talking about you know, limiting work visas and tightening up on like border control and all of this shit, as opposed to Democrats, which are 100% in lockstep towards working towards, you know, open borders. Again, I'm not saying that you have to be like actively pro-Trump, but like the online left has been so vehemently actively anti-Trump on this issue, when like out of two positions that don't reflect our actual values, his is actually the one that seems like obviously more in line with less exploitation of workers,
and like what most working class Americans would probably like.
You're right. It's left-wing politics almost exclusively for posterity's sake, right? Like we have to be champions of the working man until the working man, who'd have thought, says something that's sort of unseemly, and then we need to call him a fucking Nazi and completely oppose him, you know, tooth and nail.
Support the working man until like the working man is in competition with an immigrant, you know.
Yeah.
Then it's not. Then we can just kind of look the other way.
Like if you're a leftist who isn't black-pilled on electoralism, and you're going to be like, all right, well, I got to vote for somebody, then like his position on immigration would be the one that should immediately appeal to an actual labor-minded
and non-interventionalism.
Yes, exactly. Well, I mean that's the obvious one, right? But yes, right. 100%.
Yeah, I mean maybe I'm still a lib on
and like that TPP shit too.
Right, same thing.
I don't think that his measures on trade. I think that his measures on trade like get overstated a lot. Like that is one thing that I'll shit on the right actively about a bit. but yes, again, like if we're choosing, I have to push back on that, right? But if we're choosing like two shitty choices, like these are all examples where like he is the obviously less shitty choice, albeit still super shitty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but he tweets 14-word tweets.
He tweeted Kofifi. You know what I mean? That's pretty damning.
He's a little unhinged.
He's like he slipped down that Manchurian candidate, and he's gonna feel over any day now.
That's actually Biden, though. Like it's in the office and
what was
inauguration?
That shit about like, oh look how little his rally is doing. You know, the numbers he's doing. But like leftists saying that shit. It was just mind-boggling. It was just like, yo, versus what? Like, what are you talking about? Versus what?
That's
like
what I'm saying.
Like, look at Biden shit. There's nothing there. And it's like these
chairs and circles.
Yeah, it's the social distancing. Yeah, it's like these
social distancing, bro.
He's got a 20-person limit. That's numbers.
Yeah, I mean, they're.
Yeah, he filled the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm down to like shit on Trump. Like, I'm sure. Like, but like, you know,
he's the president.
But at the end of the day, they still view the Biden left as the side that is still on their side. They still view them that way. You know, you talk to all these like hammer sickle motherfuckers. Like they're supposed to be the guys who are like, you know, trying to put these motherfuckers in Central Park. You know what I mean? Like Chris Matthews said, like they're supposed to have that mentality, and they still view the left, the Dems, as like one of them. They still talk that way in all their criticism and all their like, oh, we're fucked. Like the Dems are doing bad. Like, oh, we're fucked. Like they're with us. They still have that language, and it's just very strange. It's like, yo, like you think they're closer to you than Trump? Because I don't think so. I think, you know, I don't even think the common thing is that they're neutral, right? Like they're both equally bad. I don't even think that. I think the Dems are 100% worse than Trump.
Right now, abso-fucking-lutely, man. Like again, it's not in like a pearl clutching like, oh, my Star-Spangled Banner, not anything like that. But like no, like putting out political ads as one of the two major political parties in this country, talking about burning it down and talking about how we're just like a fundamentally horrible, evil country. That's like end days of Rome shit. And like, I don't want to be in fucking end days of Rome. Like, stop doing this. You know what
and I mean? That doesn't even speak to Biden's base, which is so mind blowing to me. Like Biden's whole thing is like, oh, I'm not a quote revolution. Like the people don't want a revolution. They want to return to normalcy. So like, it's just kind of crazy when they're just like, yeah, burn it down. And then like fight it.
Right. It's schizophrenic. It's just like inherently schizophrenic.
They're trying to be all things to all people. They're being stretched thinner than Obama was, because Obama just had to play center left, center right. You know, it's very, very easy. It's a short pivot. But this poor old guy who's got clear, you know, his eyeballs about to bust out of his head. They're making this old fucking geezer who can't remember where he's at. They're forcing him to finesse an even bigger fucking pivot. He's trying to get like the populist left. And all their fucking, you know, the economic left, he's trying to get us. And he's trying to get the rat libs and the neocons. Like he's trying to finesse everybody at once. Like that's cruelty. It's elder cruelty.
And like the anti-China nationalist strain.
The neocons,
yeah, neocons.
It's cruel.
And jokes on him because I'm far economic left and I'm a racist.
He's losing the Slav vote, and he can't get that
handily.
Yeah, I had someone try to tell me that Trump might not even win Georgia, and they sent me
that map.
Yeah, they sent me something that was like the amount of votes, right? And Trump had 1 million. The Republican Party had 1 million votes, like 1,033,000 votes in Georgia, and the Democratic Party had 1,200,000. And he was like, "Look, bro, like they're losing, like they don't even bring out as many voters." And I was like, "Yeah, dude, but also Trump is running unfucking posed." And he brought out 1 million.
Exactly. That's why I kept telling these motherfuckers, like, are you stupid? Like, crazy. He's running unopposed, and they still did that just to show that they still fuck with him. That's why I don't get the left. Yo, it's such a weird thing, man. Watching all the like MSNBC libs do the same thing they did in 2016. Be like, yo, he's doing him. He can't win again. I'm like, damn, this is mad familiar. I remember this shit, feeling like he can win, and they're saying that he can't win. I just remember the same exact feeling. And the left, you know, I mean, I think it's true because of a coup, but that's very different than the left actually thinks he's going to lose because he's becoming less popular. Like that's a very different reason for why he would lose. You know what I mean?
He may be becoming less popular, but Biden is not at all more popular.
Yeah,
like, that's what I think.
I think it's still safe to say. I think it's still safe to say that what's happening right now is like a flurry of blows against him, and to like make. I think it's way too early to call it naive to say that Trump is like just losing popularity and that could lose him the election. Like I think that that's a reasonable possibility, man. Like you know,
just a straight up election he loses.
I am not ruling it out. Having said that, like my point earlier, just about like the default political party in America, if you're apolitical, just is the Democrats.
I don't think so.
No, I get what you're saying, but I
not
still
for
think
working class people.
I think it's the Republican Party. The default agnostic opinion is the right.
Okay, in every single depiction of politics in our culture, in our shared culture and everything, that is the case. Right? Everybody that's plugged into the television set is seeing that, right? Normies. Okay? I get what you guys were saying, right? But you get what I'm saying. I mean, it's the hegemonic.
Sure.
It's the value, the main value system, right? Is that. And it's the Democratic Party to the empty vessel who is being filled with the culture of our times, looks at the Democratic Party as the lukewarm glass of water and looks at Donald Trump as the boiling hot glass of water because he's in the Republican Party. They're going to side with the Democratic Party because they're not the actively bad ones. They're just the neutral ones. Having said that, I think that part of that is like relying on the fact, is basically just like relying on Americans being lazy fucking slobs that are basically just empty vessels to pour their main cultural media agendas into. And if you're going to hedge on that as your main strategy, then you're probably also going to come up on the fact that like this is us being a bunch of, you know, fat, lazy fucking slobs. And so like how many of those people are actually going to get up and fucking vote in the first place? Like I think that the part of our American psyche that leads to deep apathy is exactly the avenue that I think the Democratic Party is trying to reach everyone through culturally. And I think that that's like, you think obviously. I think that can be completely disastrous.
You think they're making an apathy pitch?
Potentially, I know that I just said that Trump could potentially lose, but right now, I think the most likely thing is just like dominating all the culture and just being like lowest common denominator. Everyone's on our page. I mean, it's like, you know, you're playing a stupid game. You might win a stupid prize. Like you're just the dumb television party, and like people might just stay on the fucking couch. You know?
I don't believe. You know, I don't believe they have the presence and the broad appeal that they say they do. I don't believe it. I don't believe. You know, if they've got, you know, what they've always said about bipartisan, you know, like, oh, it was bipartisan, like, you know, everybody fucked with it. The whole country fucks with it. But it's for, like, tax cuts for the rich. You know what I mean? Does the whole country really fuck with that? When, you know, half of the voting age population votes, you know? So then you got even smaller sliver of that that's, you know, basically consenting to all this. Like, do they really fuck with it? It's like, I don't buy that, man. I don't buy that they're...
It's a different game now. It's not about that anymore. It's literally about.
No, I think
we're in the beginning of Nazi Germany, and like, do you support Donald Trump? And like most people on the side of the road, unless you're in a rural area, and like hate to break it to you about population sizes, but like most people are gonna fucking tell you the socially acceptable thing that doesn't come with the fucking deep stigma, right? That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying
most of these people might not go out and vote for them.
Exactly. Like you can be the room temperature of, you know, you can have all of the social norms on your side and everything, but that's passive as opposed to actually like actively getting people riled up, which isn't their strategy. You get what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yes. And that is what Trump's strategy is getting people actively riled up.
Yeah,
and so he has a higher energy in his supporter base, and that energy translates into voter turnout. And Biden has one of the weakest energy of any voter bases that I've seen. Now, I've not been around too long through many elections, but like, I don't know anyone that's like stoked on Biden. I know several people that are like, okay, Biden. And so I think that doesn't translate to like, if people have maybe some other plan on polling day, they just wouldn't vote type of shit. Where like maybe some Trumpers would like, they would change their plans around to make sure they can vote.
That's what I'm saying, yo. It's fervor. It's the same as 2016. It's like establishment or anti-establishment. The people who are anti-establishment have more fervor because they're more desperate. The people who are, you know, not as desperate, they don't have that fervor. They're cool in either way. I mean, you know, now it becomes a thing where, you know, I remember when I wished more people were political. Like everybody was apolitical. I was like, damn, I feel like people. I felt like a weirdo. And now everybody's into politics because the situation materially is getting worse. It forces everybody to.
And come into your life.
Of course, yeah, and of course they do the politics, but as you know, culture war shit instead of material shit. But the material thing drove that. Like, it's getting worse, and that's why everybody has to think, damn, why is shit all fucked up right now? Like, they have to think about that. So
it's still important to keep in mind, though, that like all this mobilization that's going on right now and people getting involved was the structures in place, the monopolies that control media companies and everything, and the political establishment beating everyone to the punch by creating an outrage to mobilize against before people actually reacted to material circumstances.
The first couple of nights were not that, though. Like, until Black Lives Matter really got involved, like a few times, like a few days into it all.
Right. I think.
Yeah. I mean, I still think my point still stands, though. I mean, like resources and millions of dollars being pumped into this, and so like, yeah, I mean, like whatever was like a few nights, like a month ago, is like something like.
That's a whole other thing now. Those people aren't out now. Those people
like,
are no longer.
We're talking about like like a riot in Minneapolis. Yeah, sure. Like I'll accept that. A protest in New Zealand or Australia or whatever. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Kind of weird.
Real quick before we move to protest shit, like I want to play CRK with your concept of a coup.
Can you turn your mic up just a little bit? Just
yeah.
Oh,
I want to play with your concept of a coup, because have you thought about the Neocon shift and very much the Republican forces around it, all of the Lincoln Project and the Super PAC, as I sort of think of that as a soft coup where there is a very real shift, and this is the Democrats won 2018 in such a major wave because of those voters. I think it was something like after 2018, 45 of the top 50 wealthiest counties were represented by Democrats, and I think. Like, I agree with your concept of a coup, but I would imagine that it wouldn't be as messy as, like, it's going to get right up to the election, and so something's going to intervene. Instead, this sort of project of the Democrats shifting to cater to that wealthier base while still, hyping up the hysteria to keep the normal Democrats, the normie Democrats who are, like, offended by Trump's vulgarity, it keeps them in the party. You keep, the more... like the base of Democrats who are just like, Republicans are racist, so we're not going to go there. They stay in the party. But the big shift is all of these voters who determined 2018 are going to similarly play a role in 2020. And so the Republicans can lean on that behind the scenes. Trumpism clearly doesn't go much beyond him. And it offers a way to sort of re-legitimate the party by ushering out Trump. And, who knows what direction it can go with in Biden. But it still very much keeps like the material interest of the Republican Party by splitting it among the Democrats.
Like, this is the coup.
Yeah, like the past 4 years have been the coup, and the Lincoln Project doing all these ads and the Super PAC being formed is just one of many steps, and we're going to continue to see more of that. But like,
yes,
the coup isn't some cabal behind the scenes, like being like, okay, when Trump goes on stage, we're gonna like fuck up his mic and make him say some shit or whatever. The coup is like the actors being like, those like fuckers in the mansion who came out without their shoes on to wave their guns at protesters, the Miami Vice pink polo dude, like, that's the coup, right? It's people like him, voters like him who materially are transitioning to the Democratic Party, or their material interests are maintained while transitioning to the Democratic Party, and the Republicans are able to go along with it because that Biden isn't a threat in that sense, and it suppresses,
right. The American political machine circling the wagons is the
exactly, yeah.
And side note on that dude that came out with the guns, everyone's acting like that's just the worst thing ever. Like, that's just the most terrible thing, and like, look how ugly his house is and shit. And like, sure, he had terrible trigger discipline, and so did his wife. Like, bro, if I was in his mindset and I thought people like for some reason were coming to my house to destroy it or whatever, I'd be out on my porch with a fucking gun too, man. Like, I don't know. Like, I get it on both sides. Like, I don't really get the outrage. Like, he didn't shoot anyone. He probably could have not aimed it at people and shit, sure. But like, they also like did apparently cross onto his property and stuff. So like, I don't know. It's not the biggest moral outrage I've ever seen. Like, people are acting like.
I mean, I don't care.
Like, I can relate with him more than I can relate with the people who are freaking out about that dude.
I mean, I don't care about it either way. I just don't give a fuck about any of the stupid like culture war fodder. I don't give a fuck either way. I really don't. I'm just sick of this shit just trending, and like, I'm supposed to take a side. I don't give a fuck either way. Like, whether they're real or not, I don't really care. The thing about the coup is like, it's just the material informs the social war shit, right? It's like the left and the libs and the DNC
and the neocons, they're all part of a shrinking base. As income inequality grows, they're on a smaller and smaller island. And, I've seen normie motherfuckers who weren't of the elite class who drifted towards Trump and drifted towards the right. They didn't have hard feelings about any of that shit. They didn't give a fuck about immigration or trans shit. They didn't give a fuck about any of that shit. They didn't care. They were the liberals of the aughts. They were agnostic. And now, when I talk to them, they're all hardcore going that way. They're drifting that way. I see them. People I never thought would drift that way are drifting that way. This is the thing. The material, and they were never, these were the people that I know anecdotally were not people who were economically cushy. The cushy motherfuckers drifted left, either drifted to Radlib Chapo left, or they drifted to, or just re-solidified like Neolib, DNC, boilerplate shit. So, it was always a material thing. So, as this material condition gets worse and Trump's not doing anything about that, it goes to them. So, it has to be, this is the thing, when people tell me there's not going to be a coup, right? It has to be two things, right? They don't have the motive or they don't have the capability. They have the capability. We all know that. Anybody who denies that is a naive fucking moron, right? So that's done. The motive, right? They tell me, oh, he's part of the Neolibs. He's part of the whole blob. So why would they do that? He's one of them. But if you know about TPP, and I get what you mean, Slav, like maybe he's not that hardcore on the right social things. Like, he isn't. I mean, there's that disgruntled vibe on the right. But
he's never read a Bible.
Sure. But he's still, I mean, I don't even know how much that shit matters anymore, that particular sector, because I mean, there's a lot of new blood in the right that's secular or whatever. But it doesn't even matter. The point being is that he is still better than them on trade and wars. And wars were how Obama got elected, right? I think I wouldn't have gone into Iraq, right? Even though he couldn't have voted at the time, right? I wouldn't have gone into Iraq. That was a big wedge between him and Hillary and the whole DNC establishment. That's how he ran as an outsider, right? This shit matters. The anti-interventionism and the trade shit, right? It's a huge wedge between the establishment. Every debate, that's how it was. It was a huge wedge. And I just feel like they have the motive. It's clear. If they have the capability and they have the motive, the only thing left is that people are just fucking completely cucked and just, go against their own interest, which might happen. If he wins, if Biden wins straight up and there's nothing funny going on, I mean, I'm just going to admit I'm a fucking moron. I'm just going to admit it. Like, I'll admit that shit. I don't see that happening because, it's a material thing, man. Shit is getting worse, and nobody looks to the Democrats to fix it. I don't care what they say. I don't care what's going on CNN. I don't care what these radlibs say, like, oh, wow, it's looking bad for Trump. It really is looking bad. I watch CNN. It's looking bad. I don't give a fuck what they say. The fact is, nobody looks to the Dems to fix that. Nobody looks to them. They always look to Obama won because he was running as anti-establishment. I'm going to fundamentally change the shit. That's what he said. Everybody's looking. Yeah, he said, I'm going to fundamentally change it. And Biden says he's not. Like, they're looking for somebody since Obama in 2008 to Trump. This whole time, they've been looking for somebody to change the shit because it's getting worse. Their kids are going to live worse than they are. And their kids, too. So that's all that defines the shit. The social shit comes after, like, oh, well, actually, maybe trans shit is fucked up. Maybe the left is fucked. It's always after. It's an afterthought. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that's what drives it. I think what drives it. You can see that
even a bunch of the left and the libs, like, for instance, when Kanye announced yesterday, like, who knows if that's real or not?
You say what?
Isn't. Kanye announced he was going to run for president.
Holy shit.
You didn't know about that?
No, I did not. I'm joking.
Yeah, I just like to say as a quick side note that FedPost is officially endorsing Kanye.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. I'm yay pilled. Yay pilled.
So Yeezys for all kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Oh, right.
But so when you saw that he came out yesterday, there was so many people on the quote left and libs and stuff that are like, A, maybe I'll vote for Kanye, and B, a lot of people saying, hey, don't fucking vote for Kanye because you're going to take away Biden's base. So you see that there's like, still even then, there's a push, even in the libs and in the left, for an outsider, like to where even Kanye was able to like bring up at least some concern from the establishment left, as well as some support in the more fringe left. So like you see, like I don't know. I don't think Biden has a strong coalition at all. I don't think he'll win this election at all.
No, he
through just like real beans.
Right.
I mean, going back to the thing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We're circling.
Just like I wonder if disillusionment is a more likely outcome than voters shifting back. Like materially deprive voters shifting back to Trump, because really the past 12 years has been, it was Obama not doing anything for them, and they go to Trump. And, I would have to imagine that coming out of all this Corona shit, like, shit hasn't hit the fan yet. Like, there's still articles about upcoming rent dues,
absolutely,
that nobody can pay for, and
unemployment's going to end.
Yeah, exactly. And I have to imagine that there are going to be plenty of voters who, while they know that Democrats aren't going to provide them anything, are going to be like, well, Trump has been here this whole time, and I only got $1,200 over 4 months, and I haven't had a job, and I'm completely fucked. So maybe neither of them are good. So I'm just going to peace out.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Which would hurt I don't think that it would hurt Trump, but I don't think it's going to hurt Trump enough to, like, I think you have that amount of people, if not more, on the Dim side as well, or like disillusioned leftists that come from the Bernie camp.
Yeah, whatever that hurts Trump, it hurts the Dems more, because they that disillusionment has been around for decades. That's been way longer than this. That's been the story of American politics, is like people checked out. Even when times were relatively good in the 90s or whatever, people have been checked the fuck out because they know this shit isn't for them. They know it's not helping them. So it's like they've already been checked out, and they already know it's tedious, trivial bullshit. So
I mean, if people just checked out, then that would almost certainly ensure a Trump victory.
Absolutely,
because the right bourgeois is bigger than the left bourgeois, and if the proles just stay home, who gives a fuck? Like, it's just that's easy. That's turning new states territory right there in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how this. I guess we should, like, I forgot about the Kanye shit. I guess we should game that out a little bit. I mean, I don't know how, because he said originally, I can't believe I'm talking about this. I guess he said originally that he didn't want to. Things were getting a little slow. Thank God he came in at the right time. Like,
Paris Hilton did too yesterday.
Said what?
She announced that she was running for president.
Fuck out of here.
Yeah, it might be it's probably a ploy, but she did it for sure.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, they were saying after Trump won that it's going to usher in the celebrity candidate era, where people are just going to, like, people. The Dems were. Who was it? Michael Moore was asking for Oprah to run. Like, it was some real, like, bleak shit. Like, people want celebrity. Like, yo, it's just anybody could win. Apparently, like, it's not about because it's the outsider thing, and people are so cucked that they think celebrities are outsiders because they're not in government. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's that type of thing. But, like, I mean, I guess
it's old school. It's old Republican shit.
Right.
It's old Republican shit. Oh, well, government being, I mean, they're not entirely wrong. Government being just this, like, completely corrupting entity. We need someone who just, like, doesn't know
who's not in government.
They're doing
as if these celebrities.
I kind of understand.
Sure. But as if these celebrities aren't rubbing shoulders with these motherfuckers at the same parties for decades. Like, it's the same blob. You know what I mean?
No, exactly. It's like, hey, let's get someone that's not from this corrupting community, and get someone from an even worse corrupting community that's
still the same community.
Like a public secret that they're all pedophiles.
Yeah, it's still the same. I mean, I just remember Kanye in 2016 being like, "I'm gonna run 2020," and then he went MAGA, and then he was like, "I'll wait till 2024 to not fuck with Trump shit." So, I mean, at this point, what he says is sort of. Subject to whether he's on his meds or not. I mean, it could be he's just saying this shit, and absolutely, and it could be that he's just saying this shit, and in a week from now, this is just a headline, or who knows? I mean, I don't know if he's serious. It's hard to you can't take it serious, but I guess if it is.
Can I ask? Are any of you guys Tucker pilled for 2024?
Oh, I heard about that.
All right, I feel like
Slav is.
Slav's watching every night. Like, that's my hero. He speaks for me.
Guy has the most watched American television show of all time.
After he has
that true?
Yes,
monologue,
man.
That monologue was actually
sometime last week. It was like what, 42 million, or am I just like completely blowing that out?
I mean, I think it was. I don't know.
Maybe it was 4.2. It might
big number.
It was big, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But I watched like a bit of it, and he's doing a really good job of positioning like moral authority and balancing criticism while still like framing it as reclaiming the Republican Party, and sort of how I could see it playing out, because I think I'm leaning more into the neocons helping Biden than you guys. Sort of what I see as a potential thing playing out is like Trump gets done with, right, and there is some sentiment of like Trumpism that his base has, and then Biden obviously isn't going to do shit, and then Tucker can come in and he can sort of run the like, we're going to reclaim the Republican Party, and like, here's the good things Trump had, and here's how the Republican Party was an obstacle to that, and I'm going to be the vector through which we can reclaim that. And he gets sort of to strike that balance on the right while also contrasting himself with Biden, who's not going to do shit.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'll make it real simple just right off the bat. If he's just rousing the populist, right? Which like I've been dismissing on here for a while as just being kind of just insignificant in Washington, within the Republican Party. And I think what we're talking about of like kind of, I mean, yeah, consolidation of the legacy parties, I guess, into the Democratic Party, like the neocons, going, yeah, you already know what I mean. Then Tucker is the one going, all right, motherfuckers, then like I'm going to repurpose the Republican Party. I like at first blush, I would imagine that that's not going to fucking work. Just because like I kind of dismiss the populists, right? Because I don't think that they're, I think that they're just insignificant. But and in no small part just because like he's on his show telling people to protest the platform of the Republican Party, and like first of all, like there's wind blowing in your direction when you're telling someone like people to do that. Though maybe anti-establishment fervor really is that magic, right? But
I think so.
Bigger, yeah, and that I would imagine you would think that. But the bigger thing is that Republicans don't protest basically almost ever. Like they really don't. A lot of the stuff we've seen about like the shutdown, and those things, I know we've like discussed it on the show, are basically like all the product of Facebook groups and shit like that. And like there's like
it's not a lot of people.
Yeah, no, but like as far as like the official the official arms of the Republican Party, no, like that protests aren't like a thing they fucking do. So I don't know. He's gonna have his work cut out for him. And I'll also just say, like, as far as being Tucker pilled or whatever, I don't know. I don't know what that even looks like anymore, but maybe I am.
Look, I think AOC and I think Tucker or whoever, I think this
AOC.
Sure,
he would destroy AOC.
Body her.
Oh my
sure.
God, he's a classic demagogue.
I think she is to some degree as well. I mean, I think Crystal Ball and Tucker are the parallel that comes to my mind a lot, where they just seem like you were part of the establishment. I remember in the aughts, you were part of that shit, and you got ejected because you weren't doing so hot, and now you're blowing this other tune. So I kind of see it as like, you're trying to salvage your own career, and where the wind's blowing. If you're going to come at it from the outside, you got to appeal to this populist sentiment on both sides. But they never really appeal to it too much, to the point where they're just sort of like funneling it back to, he's still talking about, the GOP as if that's salvageable. If you're a hardcore motherfucking right person, the GOP is shit. They're not doing shit. They're fucked. They're completely fucked. There's no fixing them. As soon as Trump's gone, they're going back to the way they were. Lindsey Graham, all these motherfuckers, they changed their tune for like a couple seconds. They're going back to the way they were. I don't believe like, the Tom Cotton and all this shit. They're going back to they're fundamentally reptilian. They're going back to that shit after Trump's gone.
I'll push back on that a little bit though. I mean, this was just the Bernie strategy. He's just proposing the Bernie strategy, but for the Republican Party. Which like I don't really
right, exactly.
I don't really think that that's what Trump was in quite the same way. Excuse me. And like I see the Republican Party, like as far as just like a base of voters and everything, like a lot more capable of pulling that off. And so like I disagree. I mean, they vote a hell of a lot more, and I think that they can vote these people in their party out a lot easier than we're going to give them credit for. Like Mitch McConnell is like in a famously dubious seat. Like his constituents fucking hate him. So like I don't like I see the Republican Party and their voters flipping the shit, being a lot more capable of flipping the shit than the Democrats are.
That the GOP would become more directly catering to them, beholden to them.
It's the same thing as Bernie Sanders, where you just go like, hey, we're just going to use this party as a platform, and or as a vehicle, and we're gonna retool it into what we want it to be.
I think it's inherently a flawed idea. I think it's inherently and I think anybody.
Well, do you feel that way because you feel that way towards electoralism, or do you feel that way in a way that's specific to this?
I don't even know about electoralism. I get what Rebel says, and I think there's a lot of validity to what he's saying about electoralism in general. But I would say more specifically, the GOP and the DNC are fucked for decades. You know what I mean? People have already known this for a long time ago.
Irredeemable.
Yeah, a lot of motherfuckers would be like, what do you mean you're trying to change the DNC, the Democrats? You're trying to change the Republicans. What are you talking about? There's no changing them. That's what they're founded in. They're founded in fucked up shit, the elite. There is no changing them. To try to change them
didn't work with Bernie.
Yeah. To try to change them is an inherently bankrupt endeavor. You know what I mean? It's not happening. It's never going to happen. And anything that you think is going to happen, anything you think is going to happen, like AOC taking over the Democrats, is not really happening. It's not really happening. It's not what you think it is. That's not really what them coming around really means the way you wanted it. Not really.
Unless she comes around to them first.
And she's not. She's not.
More so, she's not far from that.
No, she's a psyop. She's what do you say?
She's trending there. Like she's
exactly.
She's just a woker version of
exactly. She's rehabbing a dead, dying party. The GOP and the DNC are dead, dying parties, and these motherfuckers, Carlson and AOC, are just rehabbing this shit. They're just trying to put a new paint on this shit. It's fucked. Anybody who's underclass, who's really underclass from like a decade ago, 2 decades ago, they wouldn't buy any of this shit. They wouldn't buy any of it because they'd be like, yo, I don't care what they call it. I don't care what they say, what nice words they say. I don't care how close they get to underclass issues that I feel. I know they're full of shit. Because it's
underclass needs its own party.
If we're obviously, like, that's the ideal, but if we're reducing the conversation to just like, are the parties just totally lame and dysfunctional, then like you're obviously going to like you're entering into a situation where you're obviously going to be right by default. But like if you are a person in the business of gaining political power, then the obvious first choice in doing that, in seizing that, is to just rehabilitate one of the two main parties that we have in this country, and to act like the correct way for Tucker Carlson to pursue his interests would be to just start a third party out, like just from the ground up, is just obviously absurd.
No,
so do I think that like this is going to, that he will end up making like a great thing out of the Republican Party, and that they will ever like achieve goals that I want? Well, like, no, and that's why I brought up electoralism. It's like, yeah, I mean, it's just going to be a bourgeois system regardless, right? But just watching it from a not having a horse in the race standpoint, no, I think that he stands a really fucking good chance, and this is the only viable strategy. He's not going to start a fucking third party, and it would be stupid if he chose to start a third party. Unless you want to go like Green Party and sit with all the fucking crystal moms and like, you know, weird hippies. I strongly disagree.
I should clarify, like, when I say Tucker pilled, I just mean, like, I think Tucker 2024 is happening, and I think he is the rehabilitation project for the Republican Party.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like, because right now he's positioning himself as striking the balance between, like, we lost the party and, like, there is some future of the party, but they're not following it. And, you know, he still gets to maintain the sentiment around Trump, but he just gets to come in 2024 and be like, well, I'm like the new thing because the Republican Party failed, when he's just sort of bringing it in the back door. And his outsider positioning currently will just completely aid in that relegitimation.
Yeah, I think that he is like the right person in the right position to pull this off. Like, just the best poised to do so. I think it's interesting. I don't know if I'm 100% sold on 2024 a run. Like, if that's going to happen. But
well, I feel like if Trump wins, I don't know if that would happen. But if Biden wins, I think I'm going to be looking out for it.
Sure. Yeah. I could see that. And again, like it's another thing entirely to say like whether or not this is doomed to fail, because like we live in a world where literally everything that's meaningful in this context just always fails because it's a horrible place. So like speaking nothing to that, it's just like whether or not this is viable or something to actually look at. Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, a hell of a lot more viable than Mitt fucking Romney taking selfies with Black Lives Matter marches when I just went up for the 4th to some rural town up north, and like, you know how many fucking Trump flags I saw up there? Like, no, man. Mitt Romney's dead in the water. He can maybe run as a fucking Democrat. You know what I mean?
He's part of the Neocon flop.
Yeah, he's yeah. But again, like I said, you know, maybe the populist right does end up just being completely irrelevant, and the media just, you know, aligns correctly, and, you know, we get Romney heir apparent to the weird android Republican Party in 4 years. I don't know.
They're not irrelevant. The thing, you know, a lot of leftists I've been hearing saying is like the populist right doesn't exist. Like, it doesn't even exist.
Well, that's bullshit.
Right. I know you get that. I mean, it's just part of this sentiment of like, well, they're either very small to being trivial or they don't exist. This whole notion to me is fucking bullshit. It's fucking bullshit denial of what's going on. It's just like, this shit is getting worse, and it's going to split to the polls, right? All the talk of like, hey, there's a lot of polarization socially and all these things, right? On social issues, and really that's what it just boils down to, right? But this polarization is based on the fact that shit is getting worse, undeniably worse across the board. And for people to act like, they always tell me, oh, the populist right doesn't exist because Trump is kind of a neocon. And I'm like, one, I can debate that he's not really a full neocon the way you're thinking. But second of all, that doesn't define the people who voted for him. The people who it's amazing how often I hear this argument. He is him, whatever the fuck he is, and his grift or whatever the fuck, I don't care, his demagoguery, whatever. But the people that voted for him, that is undeniable. If they're dumb and stupid and they just got suckered, whatever. The point being is their sentiment is undeniable. Undeniable. They want fucking change. And if they view it as through him or through Obama, 1 in 10 people switch from Obama to Trump in the Rust Belt where the votes mattered. That's just a fact. So it's like, people don't get, like, people just want something outside of the norm, right? They just want something. That's what the definitive factor is anti-establishment. And it's just shocking how much the left and the neolibs and everybody just makes it seem like the neolib cons have more sway than they do. They don't. They're desperately, if you're really looking at it with sober eyes and really seeing it for what it is, they're flailing. They're desperate. They're fucking desperate. They're not in good standing. I don't care what's going on in the news, how well they seem like they're positioned, or how in control they seem they are. They're not. They're flailing. They're fucking flailing. They don't have a grip on this shit. And that's why, in my mind, they have to do the coup. They have to do martial law. They have to pretend that this fucking virus, psyop bullshit, mutated. They have to say this shit because they've got no choice. They can't get a grip on people through the conventional consent means. They can't do that anymore because nobody buys this shit. Nobody believes them. For decades and decades, whoever was on the right with the Republicans or the Democrats, they've been disillusioned. The majority of them have been disillusioned. There's some idiots who still cling on, who've probably been doing well, or just cucked out of their minds. I don't know how that's about. I don't know how.
But we're 4 years into like Trump revitalizing the Republican Party. Like his approval ratings are fucking insane. Like people are super enthusiastic about Trump.
Him, but not the GOP per se. He talks shit about the GOP, and all these articles about all this QAnon conspiracy, like the deep state's trying to get rid of him, and if you watch the lib media like I do, I watch it a lot. I hate watch a lot of it. Every fucking couple of weeks. Every couple fucking weeks, it's like, this rumors in DC that the GOP, they're very uncomfortable with the fact that they have to work with Trump, and they say they're with him, but secretly they don't like it, and that's a victory for us, whatever the fuck that means. It's not fucking real. It's not fucking real. You know what I mean? Like I don't know.
And it's not for like normal underclass people.
It's not. I think everybody knows that. I think everybody knows that he's not one of them. And I don't know. I'm losing the thread here, but I don't think they have as much power and presence and appeal as they say they do. I think most people, I don't care, who's got, doing numbers this night, whether Crystal Ball is going viral or whatever. I don't give a fuck about that shit. I know that nobody trusts these motherfuckers. That is the consensus opinion among most Americans. They don't trust any of these motherfuckers. I remember saying like, oh, Bernie's different, like, and they'd be like, they're all the same. And I used to be like, damn, like, you're mad cynical. You're just fucked up. Like, why do you feel that way? They're right. They're right. They're all the fucking same. You know what I mean? Like, people know this. Everyday people know this. People older than us know this. They've seen it. They've seen everybody who comes in who's a transformative figure who's supposed to change the party cannot change it and becomes co-opted by it. Every moment, if you want to take it away from individuals or electoralism, these moments, like BLM shit, the Floyd shit, these moments that seem like they're real, and maybe, they are founded in something real, but they don't stay that way. They get co-opted. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, to cling on to it like it's something real. It's just absurd to me. It's just absurd. It's not yours anymore. You know what I mean? And most people who are cynical, if I'm cynical, the average person in this country is very cynical. This shit it doesn't move that way. Does that make sense? Like,
well, yeah, but what are we arguing here? Because I think it started out as whether or not the populist right is relevant or not, or meaningful in Washington. Like,
well, I think, and then it became a discussion of would the GOP be like a good vehicle for the populist right? Is that
was the only option they have?
I think that that's a false dichotomy. I think
Exactly.
right now,
Exactly.
like as far as power structure
Okay,
goes,
well, what's the alternative?
But like,
what's the alternative?
Anything else?
I think that you
Name
would be
one
surprised
alternative.
if you get someone who's actually as popular as a Tucker Carlson that came out, maybe ran as Republican, but maybe he starts to like butt heads a lot with the GOP. If he split off, he would. I'm not saying he'd win that election, but he would bring a lot of the tide with him to a third party that would be more of a populist party that would actually be that could actually be populist in nature, and then possibly that grows and feeds on the energy, and maybe they can have a shot the next go around because it'll have completely fractured the GOP party.
Yeah.
Same thing, I think, is if Bernie would have done that this past year. Had he said, you know what, fuck you, Joe Biden, I'm going to step out right now and I'm going to run independent and I'm going to run on this other thing, I think he would have split the Dem party a lot too. And it doesn't mean that he would have won. I don't think that left populism would have won at that moment, but it would have would have broken the false dichotomy. It would have shown that there's support for people and it would have showed people that these aren't right now, they're the only two ways to have power politically in this nation, yes. But it would show people that that's a false dichotomy and that's
absolutely
that's what they want us to think, right? Is that you need to co-opt the Republican Party or the Democrat Party. Sure, that'd be the quickest way to get power, but you're not going to be able to do a populist program under that thing.
Exactly.
So yeah, maybe Tucker. Tucker.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
There's just no infrastructure for it right now. But
yeah. But I think
that's the entire problem, and that's my argument
exactly.
with and that's my argument with the populists, right? Is that they just don't hold any fucking positions in Senate. Like they just don't have the people there. Like the populist right can show up to vote for Trump, but like as a faction within the party, which there are factions within both parties, they're not as strong as they would need to be for like what someone like Carlson is like proposing. Right.
The right-wing version of the Jim Clyburn pointing gun picture.
Bada boom. Yeah, no, exactly. It all comes down to that, right?
Well, I think it's a concession thing. It's always a thing of like what's easier and what the concessions are. If you're beaten down so much, the smallest concession will seem like getting a mile to you. So they may be the only option in this system that happens to be a two-party winner-take-all system. If you're in a parliamentary system, you'd see no false dichotomy. You'd see that this is way more segmented than it is. We already know it is. You know,
and that's why they don't have alt-right people in senator positions either, because like they're having to run under the Republican moniker if they're trying to, and so like people, I don't know, I just don't see people coming up to vote for them that would do that.
Exactly.
Like as maybe I'm missing the mark here, but like I'll use the I'll sound like a lib here and I'll use the purity test talking point. But like it sounds like you guys are just giving purity tests to these parties. And like again,
it's not a purity test. These are bourgeois parties, so it's like
absolutely is a
you
purity
need to
test.
build a third option. You need to give people.
Well, I know, but any party that exists in our representative democracy is going to be a bourgeois party. Like that is the reality of the governmental form we have, right? And so with that in mind, like we also need to acknowledge the fact that like there's absolutely no energy right now. Or at least if there is, it's 100% silent. It's a real big sleeping giant. There's no energy at all for for a third party. There is okay. There, like I said, there is no one making it. Yeah, I mean for now. Well, exactly. But I mean like for now, we're not a communist state. But like that's a pretty meaningful distinction.
Sure.
Like there is no one indicating or making any moves to indicate that anyone has any intention of starting a third party.
But I'm saying if someone did, they would get some.
Exactly.
Exactly. That's the issue.
I would vote for them. But the fact is that I know, but that's also the reality is that no one is. And
no, you're right, Slav. You're right. But the thing is that there's something at work where there's people who are deliberately funneling that energy back into the establishment, and that is an undeniable thing where they see things, you know, the edges fraying. And they take that energy, they get one step ahead of it, they see it coming, it's already in the spreadsheets, it's already projected out, and they
absorb the narrative
exactly,
and then they don't lose a customer.
Exactly. They take it that way.
They've got Bernie's email list.
Exactly. They absorb it so that it goes back to them and that it never gets out of their control. It always, and the people, from the people's perspective, if you're out there like, damn, shit looks mad bleak, I wish there was some ray of hope, they give that and they make sure it stays just there. It's within a frame that they can control, and that they flock to that because if they were given an option beyond that, they would jump to it. They would immediately jump to it, but they're not given the option, so their imagination is limited.
Real quick.
In one day, we can hope that our fledgling third party becomes finds itself in the exact same position. Like I mean, it's just like
I just think discounting it right now like is never going to get to a point where it could do that. It's like all I'm saying.
It just seems like an irrelevant thing to talk about. I guess is what I'm saying. Like again, like I agree with you guys in theory and everything, but it just doesn't reflect what's going on in the world. What were you gonna say though, man?
I'm gonna be honest. I think you guys are underestimating Ye.
Yeah, the Ye card. We're still neglecting the Ye card.
I don't know about you guys. I'm ready to grab my speaker. I'm ready to grab Yandi. I'm about to go canvas, take my Bernie skills, and I'm going to go door to door.
Exactly.
We never realized until just now, but Kids See Ghosts 2 is just a presidential campaign.
Exactly. This is, I mean, if you look at it honestly, right? Like he's going to be MAGA, right? He's MAGA, but he's not going to be as harshly socially right as Trump. So he is the third position. If you're looking for a third position, he's the way. He is the way because
it's true. It's true. So I mean, I'm 100% Ye pilled.
I'm Ye pilled
for all. That's how we're going to buck the system, guys.
Oh, absolutely.
Elon Musk VP slut.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
I thought
or be Kid Rock, and that can be that picture of what the establishment fears.
That would be pretty fire. That would be
pretty good, actually.
I'm telling you, don't underestimate Ye.
Were you guys big Kanye fans? Like Kanye, like musically?
I mean,
Homecoming was all right.
It'd be like K-Hive, but on steroids. I'll call this out. 2020.
Normalize black people having mental illnesses.
On national TV.
Like 2 weeks before the election, is bust out the Confederate flag reclaiming thing again, and boom, unites the.
I don't think Kanye is K-Hive. I feel like that's two different groups. I feel like the K-Hive.
His fans.
No, I think the fans are different. I think the K-Hive fans are really like.
Well, yeah, they're
PMC deranged motherfuckers.
Shit.
Yeah, exactly.
K-Hive almost seems like left, like liberal hoteps.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, that is the best description I've heard of them. Liberal hoteps.
It's like Rebel would love this shit.
I know. I know. It would be smitten. It's like if you took hoteps and then you added like resist MSNBC shit, and then just like an Adderall.
Rachel Maddow in blackface.
Yeah, thinking Trump is Dr. Yakub, like that. That's how you're that fervent, but about some dumb shit. Like, no, Kanye's fans are way more across the board. You'd have some underclass people. People love Kanye. I don't fuck with Kanye.
People love music,
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think his music's kind of. I don't know. I mean,
he's not good.
He shifted rap. I mean, him and 50 Cent beefing like over the album sales, like in the aughts, that completely shifted rap to like away from gangster rap to backpack shit. So he's like a.
He's influential.
Oh yeah, and 808 on Heartbreaks. I hated that shit, but all the like, Zoomer rappers, like everybody like on that, of that tier, younger than me, basically, love that shit, and it defines rap. Pretty much every rapper right now, the most popular genre in the world right now, is influenced by that album and Kanye. Like they love him. So, he's
my president.
Yeah, he's got that type of sway. He's definitely got a broader appeal than lock him up Kamala Harris.
For real, he's not running for president. He's probably trying to release an album soon. He's probably a big marketing
I wouldn't be shocked if this was just a marketing play. Yeah, it just goes away. But
because he can't even get on the ballot,
way, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. He can't even get on the ballot though in like 6 different states. Right.
I know, but
Trump's run was marketing, so
exactly. I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all thought Trump shit was a joke, and some celeb shit is a joke, and he won. So I mean, I again, if it's strictly an anti-establishment thing, and people don't understand what is establishment or not establishment, they don't have a good gauge of it, but their sentiment is change outside establishment. Kanye would feel that. Kanye would feel that yearning or whatever that would be. He'd definitely be the most dynamic one between, if you're looking at Biden versus Trump and you're just some normie and you're like, damn, like these are my choices. Like, he would be a dynamic, way of breaking that up.
Yeah, think how dope the inaugurational ball would be.
Yeah.
It would be like really weird. I mean, his addresses would just be him like staring straight into the camera.
Yeah, bro. And like some gospel singers behind him.
Yeah. No, it'd be like 5 minutes of him staring into the camera, like silently, just like super serious. He'd be like America's gaslighting abusive boyfriend. Like we'd just be on one for 4 years. And honestly, I'd be fucking here for it.
I would too, man.
Do you think Kanye can make a play for the evangelicals?
Yes.
Yes.
Easy. Theocracy.
That's a political machine.
That's what he did his gospel album for.
Dude, look at how fucking little black church ladies defeated Bernie Sanders. Like,
yes,
this energy.
He's bringing back the theocracy.
I'm falling deep in the pill. He's got every element.
All right, I'm gonna go eat pizza.
Yeah, I'm about to head off.
I'm dipping out too, but I'm yay pilled. I'm grill pilled.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm most definitely yay pilled, maybe a little tuck pilled.
I'm taking pills.
SpicyBoi, it was good to have you on.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, absolutely, bud.
Yeah, man.